pandemic. War in Europe and the Middle East. A reckless dictator in Russia, China.
The BBC has discovered evidence that a major Tory party donor was a director of a company secretly owned by a Russian oligarch close to President Putin.
Lyubov Chanukin has donated large sums to the Conservatives to play tennis with David Cameron and Boris Johnson, and £135,000 for a night out with Theresa May and members of the cabinet. She's reportedly on a secret advisory board of ultra-wealthy Tory donors with access to party leaders.
Illegal migration fueled by criminal gangs.
Proof deterrents aren't working as the number of channel crossings tip over 10,000.
We faced unprecedented challenges here at home because of global insecurity. But by sticking with the plan, Rishi Sunak is steadying the ship and making progress.
Right, but I'm not hearing from anyone else that they've got a plan.
Inflation is down from over 11% to near 2%.
It's the Bank of England's job to keep inflation low and stable.
Taxes are being cut.
Let's talk about the highest tax burden since the Second World War, shall we? The government is on course to oversee the biggest tax-raising parliament since records began. That's according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies analysis.
Wages are rising.
In the past 15 years, the UK has seen pretty much a stagnation in real wages. If a pre-crisis trend had been maintained, real wages would be more than £11,000 a year more.
And mortgage rates are coming down.
Liz Truss, do you have an apology for the people whose mortgages went up so much during your time in office?
Well, I question the premise of what you're asking me, Ed.
NHS waiting lists are falling month on month.
Let's look at the headline figure, the one that tends to dominate, the waiting list. This is the number of people who are waiting for elective care on the NHS. Now, that has gone down for the fourth month in a row. It's down to 7.58 million in January, and it was 7.6 in December. Remember, in September, it was at its highest, 7.7 million. But also, you have to remember that this is still 360,000 more than when the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, pledged to reduce the waiting list.
And flights to deport illegal migrants are about to take off.
If I'm re-elected as your Prime Minister, those flights will go to Rwanda. We will get that deterrent up and running.
That's proof the plan is working.
That plan is working.
But the future is far from secure.
Increasingly, politicians are seen simply as managers of public life. But now, they have discovered a new role that restores their power and authority. Instead of delivering dreams, politicians now promise to protect us from nightmares.
In this increasingly uncertain world, we need to build a future where we are safe, secure, and prosperous.
But much of this threat is a fantasy, which has been exaggerated and distorted by politicians. It's a dark illusion that has spread unquestioned through governments around the world, the security services, and the international media.
And because the ship is steadier, we can now take the steps towards that. Only Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives have a clear plan and will take the bold action to do what's needed.
But the plan is working.
We stepped up to save the economy and 12 million jobs with furlough during a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic.
The NHS test and trace system, which is likely to cost the taxpayer £37 billion, failed to prevent lockdowns, and there is no clear evidence that it had cut the number of coronavirus infections. Those are the findings of the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee, which has published a highly critical report on the scheme. The MP said that the cost was staggering and that taxpayers were being treated like a kind of cash machine.
We got the Rwanda deterrent into law, despite mountains of opposition from Starmer's Labour trying to block it.
Then it's inevitable, I'm afraid, there are going to be challenges. It's inevitable that people are going to try and throw everything in this at this to try and stop this plan from working.
We made Britain the biggest defence power in Europe by increasing defence spending.
This is really a story of choices. Behind me is the UK's defence spending as a percentage of GDP since the end of the Cold War. Less money being spent as the perceived threat recedes.
We scrapped the over-budget and constantly delayed HS2 and used every penny saved to fund local transport projects near you.
Are they for real? Just one of the responses from opposition MPs to the news that money that's come from scrapping the HS2 project in the north of England will be spent on fixing potholes in the south.
Now we are committed to introducing a bold new model of national service for 18-year-olds, which means the next generation spend time either volunteering in their local community or serving in our armed forces.
Part on the global stage, so we've been involved in wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and most recently in Yemen. So we need a professional armed forces, well motivated and effective 24/7. I'm not entirely sure that 30,000 18-year-olds in for a year helps us do that.
We announced a triple lock plus to ensure pensioners have dignity and security in retirement, where the state pension is never subject to income tax.
And with the newer state pension on track to rise beyond that by 2027, the proposed new threshold will ensure you don't pay income tax on your state pension. However, it's important to point out this situation is a result of Conservative policies, and this pledge just reverses a change brought in by the Tories. The higher tax threshold for pensioners in place under the Labour government was scrapped by George Osborne in 2016.
We've set out a clear plan to deliver 100,000 more high-skilled apprenticeships a year.
Let me show you what's happened to apprenticeship starts in England in the 2010s. You see how the line goes up, but actually since 2017 it's been declining. Current total of 337,000 a year, that's actually down by a third. Conservative plan takes it up to 440,000, but you see from the chart that it's still well below the peak from the middle of last decade.
And we've rolled out the biggest expansion of free childcare, a £6,900 package for families that removes barriers to the workplace.
On to the UK now. Once again, Rishi Sunak seemed to be in trouble. What is it this time? Well, he is facing a parliamentary probe. Why? Over his wife, Akshata Murthy's shareholding in a childcare company. She became a shareholder on the 6th of March. On the 15th of March, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, presented his 2023 spring budget. And among other things, new childcare workers were given an incentive of $746. But this was doubled to nearly $1,500 under one condition, that the childminder needs to join via an agency. And guess what? Koru Kids was one of the 6 agencies involved in the scheme.
What have we heard from Labour? Nothing.
So here we are. One card, 6 steps, in your hand, a plan to change the country.
Keir Starmer said trust had been broken in politics, so politicians mustn't overpromise.
The easy thing is just to pretend we can deliver it all. Nice big wheelbarrow of things that we can deliver. But if we can't deliver it, I'm not going to say it, because I think that's the stable foundation we need in politics now for the economy.
This election will decide whether or not Britain has a secure future. The world is changing quickly. It's becoming more dangerous than ever before.
Разочарован тем, что разговор немого с глухим у нас получается. Вроде бы слушаем, но не слышим. По крайней мере, наши подробнейшие разъяснения, в общем-то, упали на...
We need to think carefully about the life we want for our children and grandchildren.
You've said that there are obscene levels of child poverty in the UK. Just how bad is the situation?
We've got probably the highest levels of poverty in living memory amongst children. And these figures have risen dramatically over the last few years. So we've now got 4.3 million children who are officially in poverty. 3 million children will be missing meals at some point during the course of this month. 1 million children last night and tonight will be sleeping without a bed of their own. This is a level of destitution for some families that we haven't seen for many, many years.
Only Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives will deliver a secure future.
I just wanted to add on to what Mr Helmer said. Mr Helmer's well aware that flying the Union flag upside down is a signal of distress, so it's entirely appropriate it should be flown upside down in this place, and I'd recommend we fly it that way permanently.
The alternative is Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, who are packed with people who want Britain to give up its nuclear deterrent and raise taxes.
We have to be fit to fight. So let me be unequivocal. This Labour Party is totally committed to the security of our nation, to our armed forces, and importantly, to our nuclear deterrent.
After 4 years of not saying what he'd do, Keir Starmer is still the man who campaigned to make Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister twice.
I've just got a tweet here. Penny Mordaunt has dropped out of the race.
I can confirm that we have received one valid nomination. Rishi Sunak is therefore elected as leader of the Conservative Party.
Now Keir Starmer won't back our increase in defence spending. It's the same old Labour Party. They're not only a risk to our nation's security, they're also a threat to the money in your pocket.
Our unelected Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced more bad news for the poorest and neediest in society, a Tory review on benefits. Yes, in an all too familiar cart before horse scenario, Sunak revealed how he's thinking of axing personal independence payments to people with long-term mental health troubles, payments worth £950 a month.
They'll bankrupt Britain with a £38.5 billion black hole, costing working families £2,094 more in taxes. They'll slap a retirement tax on pensioners.
The director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies is saying this morning that there's a £60 billion black hole in your figures, and that's either going to be done to sort it out with a hatchet to public spending or the equivalent of a 10p increase in the basic rate of tax. Which one?
This is the national debt. The higher this is, the more the national debt. This is a projection going out into the future. That's what was expected back in March. But look at what the mini-budget did to it. You've got that unsustainable rise in the national debt.
And they'll bring in French-style union laws which would hammer business.
What do we want? More pay! When do we want it? Yesterday!
Braving the elements this morning, Border Force staff launched a second round of strikes today. But it's not just airports. Train workers on 2 lines are on strike today and tomorrow, with more planned next month. And driving instructors continue their rolling walkout. Public sector strikes will continue into the new year, with ambulance workers in England and Wales and nurses in England also on strike again in January.
So the choice on the 4th of July is clear. Stick with the plan by choosing bold action for a more secure future.
This is proof that the plan and priorities I set out are working.
Or go back to square one with Keir Starmer and the same old Labour.
It wasn't always like this. Cast your mind back to 2007. I was in year 3 and spending all my allowance on Club Penguin. Things were far from perfect, but materially, we were all better off. Huge strides had been made in reducing child poverty. Crime had been on a downward trend since 1995, and the health service was in such good shape that people complained the waiting list to see a doctor was too short.
Right, but I'm not hearing from anyone else that they've got a plan. But the plan is working.